Stay tuned to the baseball edition of the Lion Nation podcast. We'll be back momentarily with Coach Grissom. Baseball Booster Club would like to thank its corporate sponsors: Adobe, Amy Maddox with Allstate, Austin Simply Fit, David Berg and Brian Brown with Crazy Cheetah Gear, Lowe's, Malik & Company, Leander Orthodontics, Take 5 Haircuts, Texas Spine and Injury Center, and Timmons Insurance Agency. Thank you for sponsoring Leander Baseball. Go Lions! The Leander Lions Baseball Booster Club would like to thank those individuals who stepped up in sponsorship of Leander Baseball this season. At the single level, Cindy Brickley. At the double level, Emily Seaman Smith. At the triple level, Linda Spear. At the Grand Slam level, Don and Tina Dunbar, Crystal Falls Men's Golf. And at the platinum level, Joe and Lisa Anger Amy. Thank you for sponsoring Leander Baseball. And go Lions! Welcome, everyone, to the Lion Nation podcast, special baseball edition. I want everyone to give a big round of applause to our host, Guaco Taco, here in Leander, right off Crystal Falls and Lakeline. If you haven't been here, make sure you come out, get some chips and salsa, and plenty of good food here at Guaco Taco. We're here with Coach Grissom. Coach, this is not a typical podcast that we have, a baseball coaches show, and that's because there's so many games during a baseball season. It's hard to squeeze in a podcast, but we're doing it tonight. We're celebrating these Lions a little bit early. There's still plenty of baseball left to be played. We're going to focus a little bit on those seniors here. It's a small senior class. Why don't we, before we talk about those seniors, though, Coach, why don't we talk about your underclassmen and some of those guys that'll be coming back next season?
Well, we're really excited. I think I would be I don't think I'm going too far out on a limb. I think this might be one of the best freshman and sophomore classes, the combination of the two that we've ever had. And you know, it's pretty exciting to watch them play and get, you know, see all the level, the depth of the talent that's in those two classes. So we're really excited about that, and you know, the growth and maturation that's going on down there with those teams is really great. A lot needs to be said about what Coach Vale and Coach Weichert are doing with those guys. I know the red team has done really, really well in the win-loss column, and I know that we've been really pleased with some of the overall development of some of those guys on the blue team. So the future is definitely bright, and we're excited about it for sure.
Well, and a couple of those JV players have made appearances in varsity games.
That's right.
You know, we saw, and it's going to be hard for me because of the name, but we saw Noah Ruin get into a game here recently, and you know, given that there's a Noah Kellum and a Hudson Ruin on this current squad, I'm going to have problems with.
I have to keep my biblical names all straight, right, with all the Noahs and but it's sometimes hard to keep everybody straight with the names, but I got Noah and Noel and another Noah, and you know, so it's sometimes hard. But you know, like I said, that sophomore class, I think there's 4, 5, 6 of them that are up on the varsity. We've got production from that class on the varsity. The thing that strikes me though, Chuck, is how hungry they are.
Right.
You know, they're hungry.
Well, and I think that's the case across Leander High School.
No doubt. And you know, that's that hungriness, sometimes breeds competitiveness.
Yes.
And it's a competitive world.
Mm-hmm.
So, we'll just throw it all out there and see how it shakes loose. But it's fun to watch the boys compete.
Well, and in most cases, the most competitive generally are the most successful.
That's
Now,
the way it works.
There's a fine line there that you can cross and get yourself into a little bit of trouble from time to time.
Sure.
We even saw that from some of the managers this season in games recently.
Right.
So,
no doubt.
And it's just one of those things that the competitive drive that is in someone can be enhanced. But I really think it's something you're kind of born with. And, a lot of times you'll see families with siblings, those kids will be competitive amongst one another, but not necessarily beyond that.
True.
Now, we talked about the freshmen and we talked about the sophomores. You have a pretty good junior class as well.
Absolutely.
Not as depth-wise. There's
Right.
not as many kids. But they're going to be the seniors next season. So do you want to talk about any of those guys?
Yeah, I think it starts with Noel and Austin and Omar. Those guys have been done a great job producing in the lineup. Unfortunately, Evan and Cameron got hurt, but they've come up with big hits and
Right.
big defensive plays throughout the season as well. So the junior class is strong. We got Connor coming out of the bullpen too, and he's going to get better and keep growing and getting stronger. So there's that junior class. That's
yeah.
right. Luke is, I think, still leading us
McCall.
in hitting in
Yeah.
district
It's
hitting.
pretty loaded.
So it is a loaded class, and it's going to be neat to watch them grow into that senior role and that senior leadership that's really, really important for sure.
Well, and I think this season, like we've mentioned, there's still a lot of baseball to be played.
Sure.
Postseason hopes are still in play.
Mm-hmm.
All Leander can do is beat the teams in front of them.
Right.
But you're really setting up a successful foundation going forward. And I think with the talent there in your junior, sophomore, and freshman classes, there's a really bright future.
Well, I failed to mention Clayton Maddox behind the plate. He's done a great job.
Of course.
And
almost hit a home run
yeah.
2 nights in a row.
Yeah, and he's done really well for us too. But you're exactly right. I mean, I think in terms of the foundational, growth and potential for that growth, we might be in the best place that we've been in quite some time.
Since I've really been following line baseball.
No doubt for sure.
Now, and of course, we don't want to forget somebody who's been on a pretty good hitting streak, and that's Noel Salazar at shortstop.
Sure.
So, and I'm sure we probably did forget a junior, and we apologize if we did.
Shooting from the hip.
Right. But so before we talk to or about the seniors and then bring them up here, there's another facet to being a coach that is a little separate from the school but is important. And I'd like to bring Heather Grissom up here and talk to us for a few minutes about being a coach's wife.
Yes, I second that. Come on up here.
Come on up here, Heather.
Come on, Heather.
Just briefly.
Come on.
Let's hear it for Heather Grissom. Yay!
You got a headset and everything. Come on.
I'm sure I'm going to be in trouble at some point.
She's your insurance agent.
There you go. The funny thing before we go and ask her any questions, I was doing the game at Hendrickson, and I strategically parked my truck behind the left field fence behind a shed, and I thought it's well hidden behind this shed. And during the game where I was sitting, I could see my truck sticking out from the shed, and somebody hit the ball. It was a foul ball, but it was deep foul to left field. And I'm like, man, that's 15 feet to the right. That hits my truck. And I was making a comment on the broadcast, and I got a text. My phone, bzzz, and I looked at it, and it said, "You're covered."
But you replied, "I might be covered on insurance, but my wife."
Right, that's true. Well, there's still a deductible usually, so that's where the problem comes in. So talk to us a little bit about being a coach's wife. We mentioned a little bit earlier that it's hard to have podcast coaches shows in baseball because of the frequency of games. And so, Matt's gone a lot. So talk about how you deal with that. And, you from my perspective, you have a pretty strong marriage. And so, I think a lot of that has to do with you and your strength. And let's talk about that a little bit.
Well, I mean, I guess for us, I mean, Matt and I met when we were 19, so I don't know any difference, right? So this has just been my life forever. My boys played, so that was part of it. And then now I have Em, and she keeps me busy, so that's part of it. And I also joke if, we're happily married because I miss them. If I saw them every day.
You might not miss them as much, right? Well, and that's one of the things as parents, you especially multi-children families, you're dealing with different events, and sometimes they're on the same night. And, we went through the same thing in all the youth sports. You're going to be in Buda on Saturday, and I'm going to be in Georgetown, and, blah, blah. And, there are problems with that, but there's also a lot of joy that could be gained from that kind of family. And so
absolutely. I mean, everything that I think we're all doing is for all these kids and hopefully to make them all better people, our kids, and then plus all the other kids around. So he loves it. He's happy. And I mean, we get lots of time, so it's a great life.
And that's the other thing about a coach is he gets not all summer off, but he gets some time during the summer to annoy you after a little while.
Oh,
right?
I would say come summertime, there's definitely that moment where she's definitely ready for school to start.
Don't you have a baseball field to mow or something?
Some grass to cut or some dirt to move for sure. But I think that. For us, we've found that happy balance. One thing that I would encourage, and I try to encourage all coaches to understand that, and this is difficult, and I think it's important that parents hear me say this as well, that you don't talk to anybody's kid. I don't say anything to anybody else's kid that I wouldn't say to my own. And I also wouldn't say anything to another parent that I wouldn't say to my wife. You know what I mean? So that's really hard for men, young men, as coaches,
it's difficult
to figure that out. But at the same time, we're going to yell at them. We're going to coach them hard. We're going to try to motivate them. We're going to try to get them going right. But again, I know I was harder on my two.
Right. Well, and that's always the case, right? Because you expect a little bit more from them.
Sure.
Now, speaking along those lines, when you're dealing with parents and players, sometimes they react to different stimuli. Like the motivation comes from different things. Some you yell at them, and that's how they become motivated. Well, I'll show him. Right?
Sure. Yeah.
And then you have the others that if you yell at them, they clam up, and you almost got to support those guys.
Sure.
Talk about the dynamic there and how long it takes you to figure kids out.
Well, I can use two examples that we have on this team. When I go out to the mound and let's say I'm talking to Ryan.
Mm-hmm.
Ryan's not going to say anything, right? He's not.
Yeah.
He's yes sir. He's listening. He's cerebral. He's calm, right? And so it's a calm conversation. Now, if I go out to the mound and I'm talking to Noah, there's a bulldog up there, right, and he gets fired up,
Yeah.
and he might want to wrestle me or something.
Right.
I don't know. I got
You're not taking the ball from me.
That's right. So, but here's the deal. That's the beauty of it all, and knowing how to push the buttons and knowing that the children are different. Heck, I have twins, and they're very different.
Right, they are.
So, no, you're not leaving yet. I'm gonna make Chuck ask you one more question before you leave. But the kids are very different, and so you have to learn what buttons to push for sure.
Do you have a specific question you want me to
ask?
No,
I want to hear that. I'll be in trouble later. Give her one more question, and we'll let her off the hook, Chuck.
Okay, Coach, if you asked me to ask her a question earlier, I've lost it.
No,
Okay.
What advice would you give?
That's it.
Future wives of coaches.
Because there could be some that are listening.
We have some young.
I think
coaches,
we have some
young
coaching
coaches
potentials.
on staff that will be head coaches.
Well, and I think you got some players over here
No
that
doubt.
might decide that that coaching is the route for themselves as well.
And I, in the past couple of years, have had several kids that I've coached that would be great coaches, including the Crazy Boys. But all right, advice.
Well, I think it has to do with any good marriage is nobody can be selfish. You have to put each other, right with you. You can't be selfish with your time, with their time. Sometimes I see younger people a little more selfish with their time. Maybe it's I don't want to say the millennials, but I mean, it is the millennials, right? They're a little more selfish with their time, and everything has to be absolutely perfect. And life's not perfect. Life's not always perfect. And you have to be able to handle the good times and the bad times. And I think for Matt and I, we've always kept faith incredibly strong in our relationship. So our faith and our family have always been number one for us.
I think that's very important, the faith aspect of that, because you can learn so much from the biblical text or, whatever faith you may be, on how that marriage should be addressed. And there's a lot of good information there. And ultimately, a lot of it comes from experience, right?
For sure.
I mean, you go through some things, especially when the kids are young. I used to sleep through the night. That was the worst thing I could do. When it was time to change a diaper overnight, it was my job to do that, but she couldn't wake me up sometimes. And she would hit me and everything. So, and I don't know if that was a psychological thing, because I always had this, oh, no, I don't want to change a diaper. And, if you stacked up the number of diapers that I changed compared to her, it's ridiculous.
I think it's just obviously always being open and honest. Never hold anything back. Don't hold grudges. If you're upset, you got to tell them you're upset right away. So
she's good at that.
It's hard to do that right away. that is something that is difficult to do because, in a selfish, I think most humans are naturally selfish. Sure. You kind of want to say, you want to justify to yourself that selfishness that you're feeling is justifiable.
Absolutely.
And if you're immediately expressing it, then it usually gets out and you realize it's not.
Yeah.
It doesn't always happen during baseball season because baseball, I'm able to come up to the baseball field and with our kids, I was always able to bring our kids up to the baseball field, or, we could have dinner at the baseball field or whatever.
Done that several times.
Football season's a little more harder. It's not as intimate of a sport, right? And so we've had many years at the beginning of football season of, hey,
remember me?
Remember the kids. We got stuff over here too. Well,
I don't want to take anything away from the football coaches, and I know you're a football coach too, but I just want to say, and I've said this to numerous people, and most people have probably heard it. I think you're the best football play caller we have on our staff.
Gosh. Oh, goodness.
I watch the freshman games.
Don't say that too loud. Coach Price just walked up.
When I watched the freshman game, I didn't even see him. That's just happenstance. But when I watch the freshman games, when you're calling the plays, those teams can't stop us.
Well, Chuck, I appreciate you saying that. I'm not
so sure that you do.
No, I do. I think that I grew up in Odessa. I was born in Odessa. Lived there till I
didn't know that.
Yes, I lived there till I was 12 years old, and my mom and dad went to Midland Lee High School. By the way, my mom and dad are listening. I love you, Mom and Dad. My father, my father instilled in me a love for sport like no other. My dad, just like all these other dads, were my dad was my best coach, just like these dads were their best coach, and instilled a love for sports. And the first thing that I loved was baseball. Because I was pretty good at it.
Right.
But Dad took the time to play catch with me and teach me things. But let me tell you something. There's nothing better than a Friday night in Odessa, Texas. I can tell you that.
I know. They don't make movies and TV series after
Mojo
teams
Magic.
if there's nothing going on over there.
I can remember at a very young age wanting to know everything there was to know about the strategy of football. I really did. And I absolutely 100% love the strategy that is a part of football. I love the fact I want our kids to play every sport that they want to play. I want them to be in the band. I want them to experience everything that life has to offer and what Leander High School has to offer. And I'm passionate about that. I think where Coach Price is coming in and been so receptive to not only who we are but taking us forward. I think it's pretty awesome. But I love football because of what it's provided for me, and I get to share that with kids. And I think it's made me a better baseball coach and a better baseball man. That being said, I think there is nothing better than a well played, strategic baseball game. I think baseball is the most beautiful game.
Yeah,
I think
it can be.
Yeah, I think baseball played correctly and played right. I think baseball is the most beautiful game. Maybe football is so much more tactics and brute and all those things, and everybody enjoys a good football.
Oh yeah.
But baseball, I think, there's no clock.
Right.
Everybody's going to get their turn. You can't hold the ball.
And we've seen it happen. You can have a 6-8 run lead
Sure.
and it's not safe
No,
because
it's not. They
all
get
it
their
takes
hacks.
all it
They get their
takes
chances.
is yep. And now what we're going to do is we're going to bring up 2 seniors at a time.
Okay.
They're unaware of how we're going to do this.
Yeah.
But we're going to bring up the 2 McMurray commits. We're going to bring up that's Ryan Gallagher and Hudson Ruin.
That's right.
And then secondly, we'll bring up if they're here, Beltran and Kellum, and then after we've interviewed all 4 of them, we'll compete 2 versus 2 in baseball trivia regarding Major League Baseball.
I like it. Sounds
and then
fun.
now I failed to bring the prizes up, but I will bring the prize to tomorrow night's game, and they can get their prize there.
Sounds good to me.
So,
All right.
we'll go on ahead and bring up Ryan Gallagher and Hudson Ruin.
All right,
Come
bring
on
them up.
fellas. Now, thanks, Coach. Now, you guys are you're going to have to be a little lively. This is a little different than a post-game interview after having 10 or 12 strikeouts or whatever. So, make sure you're very participative. Now, we'll start off with baseball. Talk about your experience this season and your role as a senior and how that affects your ability to lead. We'll start with you, Ryan.
My ability to lead as a senior, I would say, just comes with, having Hudson on my side and Noah and Anthony, and we all kind of know that with there only being 4 of us that we have to take control in some situations and lead the juniors and teach them how to do the same things that we were taught. So
now, are you a vocal leader, or do you lead more by example, or is there a little combination of that going on?
I feel with our senior class, it's more of lead by example. We don't really we don't vocalize the leadership as much, but we all kind of know what to do and what's expected.
Yeah, and you kind of see that from the underclassmen too, and that's a nod to your coaching staff. They're working with those guys. But honestly, if you're a freshman, you're a sophomore, even a junior baseball player, you're looking at that senior class. I mean, you guys had a Division I pitcher last season who pitched against UT recently and, did well. Did you learn anything from Mason Montgomery that you brought into this season?
Yeah, Mason was really humble and never showed, how good he was. He never really expressed that to the rest of the team, and that kind of showed me that it's still possible to be as good as him and still be humble. So that was always cool to see.
Well, and we had Montgomery, and you had all these outstanding starts, and you were a pretty good pitcher your junior year as well. But you've been quite dominant this season. What did you change to up your strikeouts? I mean, did you just put in a lot of extra work in the weight room, or what's the secret?
I changed my pitching form a lot from last season actually, and I figured out how to precisely throw each and all of my pitches, and really mastering just those 3 was the key, and being able to throw those for strikes where I want them. Well,
and as I mentioned, you were a really good pitcher last season. You've been lights out this season. It's been impressive. So, and during the broadcast, I've probably mentioned that McMurray is going to be super excited to have you next season. Do you know if the coaches are watching the streams at all?
I'm not sure if they're watching, but I do talk on the phone with him, and he knows about some of my success, and he's happy to hear all that. So.
Okay, and now Hudson, we'll get you real quick, and then we'll get some more embarrassing questions for the guys. Now you hit a home run so far this season. It's a tough thing to do, really.
Yeah.
And most of the fields are pretty big, and our field, while it's not huge, the wind's always blowing in. Talk about hitting at the diamond and what you try to do more often, because I've noticed you try to hit the power alleys or you try to spray the ball just out of the outfield. Talk about your hitting technique.
Well, hitting at Leander, like you said, the wind's always blowing in. So it's kind of an adjustment to come here and hit, and you kind of got to hit the ball more on a line or on the ground most of the time.
Right.
On occasion, you get a game where the wind's blowing out and you can put one up and it'll go a long way. But most of the time, it's base hits that win games. You're not going to hit the ball over every time.
Well, and I've noticed that you have a little bit of an ability to try to decide at least which side of the field you're going to try to drive the ball. And the example being that if there's a runner at second, the short stops a little tighter to the bag. Maybe the second baseman is they're trying to pick off that runner, and it opens up some alleys. And I've noticed that if you see an opening, you know, if it's on the left side of the infield, you kind of turn on it a little bit, and you open your stance up to try to hit it to the right field. Is that an adjustment you make right at the last second, or is that something you kind of guess at and then
that's more of an approach thing. My swing altogether kind of stays more or less the same, but I'm aiming one side or the other depending on the situation.
So it's your stance?
Not really. It's more of mindset. Where I'm aiming, I'll step into the ball more, hit it the other way, or I'll pull it. It just depends. For example, guy at first base, you want to hit it to the right side. He can get to third on a base hit, where if you pull it,
right,
it's easier to get him at third. It's just doing a job and hitting it wherever you can. There's just jobs to do.
Well, and you're one of the power hitters on this line team, but it's an unselfish team, and I mean that in terms of, you know, if you're dealing with college coaches or college players that are really good or professional players, they're not going to just walk up and bunt if they're asked to necessarily. They're not going to like it much. But you're willing to just, you know, step up there and you know, I want to advance the runner. Talk about the unselfishness at the plate in that aspect of baseball.
Well, your job as a hitter is not always to get a hit. You want to get the guy over. You want to move. In baseball, the team that wins is usually the team that has the most overall bases. Just you get to first, that's one base. You get to second, that's two bases, right? It just kind of works out because you score more runs.
It's statistics.
Statistically.
Yeah.
So when you bunt a guy over, even if you're out at first, you're giving yourself a statistic-like chance over the other team. You're helping yourself out. You bunt the ball over, you got a guy in scoring position. It's not your job isn't always to get a hit, but you always have a job.
Right. I agree with that.
You either got to get the guy over or score him.
Well, I you know, and we talked about it with Coach and Mrs. Grissom, the selfish nature of people sometimes. And, you know, I'm doing the broadcast, and I see Hudson come up, and we got a runner on first and nobody out. I'm like, swing away. And you lay down that bunt, and you get the guy over. And that guy eventually, you know, 75% of the time scores. And so, you know, there's a reason they call it a sacrifice bunt, right? So now you're also going to McMurray with Ryan. Talk about that experience and what you can what you're expecting. You know, are y'all going to room together?
Yeah, we're going to room together. That's going to be a lot of fun. A little bit of a nightmare, but it's okay.
Well, I know pitchers and hitters aren't always hanging out together in college and in the pros as much. You know, the pitchers kind of congregate with catchers sometimes too, but mostly pitchers, and then the hitters tend to congregate together. But you are going to have a unique relationship in that way.
Yes, sir. It makes going off to college to play ball a lot easier to have
It's a
somebody
long
going
way
with
to
you.
McMurray. So.
Oh, it is.
Definitely.
Coming back is going to be a lot easier with somebody else in the car, not driving.
That's
back
the
alone.
other thing is I know you both drive, so there's no reason for you to both drive, you know, back and forth. How are y'all going to split that up? Because I know I'm always telling when I was in college, I was telling my roommates, no, you can't. We're not taking my car.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't want to drive that far, and I doubt Ryan wants to drive that far.
Do you think Ryan will let you drive his car?
Nah.
We'll make a system.
We'll figure it out. We haven't really talked about it yet, but we'll figure it out.
That's something to plan. Now, we're going to focus a little bit more on academics and here at Leander High School. And I'll start with you, Ryan. What is your favorite class, your favorite subject? And that may also result in who your favorite teacher is. Now, understand they may listen to this, and the other teachers may as well.
Okay. Right now, the science classes change, but I'm taking Earth Space Science, and we are doing the astronomy unit, and I just find all of that extremely interesting, and learning about the different planets. And
Have you heard about the planet they think is outside of our solar system?
No. Is it recent?
Yeah, it is a recent discovery. They're about 99% sure something is out there.
Oh, yeah. So that
beyond
interests
Pluto.
me. Yeah.
So, what do you think about Pluto losing its designation as a planet? Since you're going to talk about science here.
I was pretty young when that happened.
Poor Pluto.
Yeah, it was sad. Tragedy.
Hey, he has a cartoon character named after him, so it's not that bad.
Nah.
Okay, now who's your favorite teacher? Is it the science teacher, or is there somebody else that's just a special teacher?
Yeah, at the moment, Coach Kostoff, he teaches the class really well, and it helps that I like the material. So
that always makes class a lot easier.
Definitely.
Like statistics class is terrible, calculus in college is awful. What's your favorite class in high school?
I feel like that changes week to week, depends on what we're doing. Like you said, the science unit in science, when we start studying space and stuff, that's cool. Overall, right now, I'm kind of enjoying, I don't know, economics a little bit. I don't know, I just kind of think that stuff's kind of interesting, how you can.
That's good, because if you can find interest in that, there's a lot of potential money to be made.
Exactly.
With
that's
knowledge in that field.
The only reason I find it interesting.
Well, that's one reason.
Yes, sir.
Now, baseball players make a lot of money too, so it'd be nice to have that knowledge and get lucky down the road and work hard and get an opportunity to have a little extra to invest. So
yep, that's definitely the goal.
Is that your favorite teacher as well?
Probably. Yeah. I'd say I have 4 pretty good teachers, but I really only
Well, just careful what you say. That's good.
No,
now,
I like Miss Lux a lot.
Miss Lux?
Miss Lux. She's my economics teacher.
Oh, okay. There you go. Now, in college, have you decided what major you're going to be? Start with you, Ryan.
I'm still undecided.
You're going to go undecided you can only do that for so long.
Yeah, I know. So I was hoping to just get some of the basic courses out of the way and, figure out what interests me as I go, but nothing's sticking out at the moment. So
you may consider broadcasting. You got a decent voice. You're going to have to pick up the pep in the be a little bit more rambunctious about it, but I think you'd be all right. What about you? What are you thinking about majoring in college? Economics?
No, I'm actually gonna major in business.
Okay, that's what my degree's in.
Yeah, there's a lot of things you can do with a business degree. I was kind of undecided for a while, and
well, and I'll say this from my limited experience that most employers want to see that you were able to start and finish something, that degree in college. Now, of course, if you're going to be a scientist, then you should focus in science. You can't get a business degree and then go be an archaeologist. Yeah. So, but if you're able to get a business degree, like you said, you can go into sales, you can go into investing. I mean, you can start your own business. There's all kinds of things you can do. The key there is to focus on your grades. And I know McMurray is do they have scholarships, athletic scholarships?
Not athletic scholarships.
Yeah, I didn't think so. But they're all academic, right?
Yes,
so
sir.
you're going to be really focused on your grades. And I'll just I'll relay some Division III experience from a head coach, and he coaches football at Southwestern. He tells his players that there's 24 hours in a day. 8 hours of that day you're going to be working on, in his case, football, but you guys, baseball.
Yeah.
8 hours of the day you're going to be in class. So what does that leave you with in 24 hours? That leaves you 8 hours to sleep, right? So you pretty much are focused on school, baseball, sleep, right?
Yes, sir.
That brings me to my next question, the more embarrassing one. Are you dating, Ryan?
I am. Yes, sir.
What's her name?
Sarah.
Sarah. Do you have anything you want to say to Sarah here on camera?
No, not on camera.
Not on camera.
Yeah, I mean, she'll be close to me.
Is she a senior
She's
as well?
Yes, sir. She's going to Abilene Christian.
Okay, yeah, that's real close.
Yes, sir.
So what about you?
Yeah, I am dating someone. Her name's Rachel.
Rachel? Is she go to Leander?
Yes, sir.
Is she a senior?
Yes, sir.
And is she going to Abilene Christian also?
Nope, nowhere close. She's going to UT.
Oh wow. Okay, so she'll be here when you come back
When
to
I come
visit.
back, yeah.
So now I've, as my role at Southwestern, I've traveled around a couple of different universities. So I've seen all of the schools, well, half of the schools in your division, and you've got a teammate that's committed to one of those schools, and it's a little more local, Texas Lutheran, right?
Yes, sir.
I'm not going to make you say anything about Noah Kellum, but I'm going to bring Noah up, and if Beltran's here, bring him up as well. I haven't seen him, but
Yeah, he's not here.
he's not here. Come on, Noah. It's just you then. And so what we'll do with trivia, it won't be teams. It'll be all, everybody
Okay.
versus everybody.
All right,
sir.
sounds good.
Yeah, don't get too far because we got the trivia next. You get up here all by yourself. Got the hot seat. You got to flip it. There you go. All right, go ahead and speak into it and make sure it sounds good.
Does that work?
You got a good deep voice, so. Now, Texas. Well, where did we start off with them? We started off with school, right?
Mm-hmm.
Talk about your. Well, no, we started baseball first.
Yeah,
Talk
we
about
started.
baseball. Coach Grissom called you a bulldog, and I think he meant that in a kind way. That your competitiveness is at a level, and that if you know what a bulldog is, it's a little thing of muscle, right? It doesn't. You're not going to move a bulldog, and there's a reason they call them bulldogs. They were used to deal with actual bulls. Now, talk about your because you got a couple of different skill sets in baseball. You pitch, you play center field, and you hit pretty well in addition. So talk about your approach to pitching first, because you work pretty quickly on the mound, I've noticed.
Yeah, I work pretty quickly. It's more of like I get super intense during a game, so it's hard to calm down. For me, I don't know. I don't know how others.
No, that's
work that
fine.
way, but,
It's what works for you
Yeah.
to play your best, in my opinion. You've got a pretty good heater. What does that reach on a clock?
At the moment, I'm not sure, to be honest, but
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's at least mid-80s, right?
maybe a little bit lower at the moment. But yeah, I'm not sure about that.
I don't know. I've seen some of those pitches come, and if you don't release it at the right point, it'll get by the catcher sometimes. You could tell when you're really throwing it hard is what I'm getting at. But additionally, you bring more value to this team and your future team, not just as a pitcher, but let's talk about defensively as a center fielder. Talk about your approach to center field, because to me, it's definitely the most difficult position in the outfield, and it may be, besides catcher, the most difficult defensive position on the field.
Yeah, I mean, outfield. I mean, sometimes it's hard to play outfield in high school sometimes because the ball doesn't get
Especially
hit
at
too
our
much.
ballpark.
Yeah,
Well, the fly balls,
Yeah.
they move around.
they
when
move
come
around
down.
quite a bit. Yeah, sometimes it's hard to see at night. The lights kind of get in the way a little bit. But yeah, I mean, I'm always wanting the ball in center field. I mean, it's really fun to play out there, going to get everything. I mean, there's nothing better than playing center field, to be honest.
Well-
It's close to pitching, but I like pitching a little bit more.
Yeah, the pitching is more of an individual one-on-one. I mean, you rely on your defense, obviously. You know they're back there, and if you throw strikes and they put it in play, generally your defense is going to get them out. But it is kind of a me versus the hitter.
Yeah, you're right.
And I've noticed that, you can both start and close. And so sometimes you'll come into situations where there's two runners on, one out, and you may be winning by 1 or 2 runs, and you got to come in there and get those outs. Talk about the kind of mindset it takes to go in there with that situation and throw strikes and get outs.
Well, in that situation, you just gotta make every pitch count. To be honest, I mean, in that situation, every single pitch counts. So it's little room for error. So go in those situations, you really gotta focus and just throw strikes. Just let your defense work.
So I've noticed that as a pitcher, and it's this way at every level of baseball, the strike zone changes, and sometimes it changes within an inning or even an at bat, but it definitely changes from umpire to umpire. How do you deal with that frustration? Because I know sometimes I see you on the mound, you're like, how is that not a strike?
Yeah, I'm a little more animated than some of the other guys over here, but yeah, it's frustrating sometimes when you throw one pitch and you throw another pitch and it's a ball and it's the same place and you're like,
how was that a ball when it was a strike just 2 pitches ago? Now, I've noticed that at the plate too when you're hitting. If you take a pitch because you're like, that's obviously a ball, and then the umpire's like, strike. You just like will turn and look at him like, really?
Yeah, Coach Grissom gets on me for that, man. I got some bad habits with that. But.
Well, again, that's part of the give and take when it comes to competitiveness, because you want the positive from the competitiveness, but you got to kind of rein in that competitiveness when it comes to directing it towards even another player.
Yeah, you got to draw a line at some point.
It's not easy, and I'll say that even from my own experience, not as a player but coaching, I've been tossed from games before.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so it's easy, and I was an adult, so it happens. So now college. You're going to Texas Lutheran.
Yes, sir.
What have they told you? I mean, what do you know about the team there? I don't know anything about that baseball team. I only know a little bit about their football.
I don't really want to brag too much on my boys going to McMurray over there, but I mean they went almost all the way. I mean, they went to the championship game, the Division
just
III
this past season?
Yeah, they're pretty good right now, so they're in a pretty good position to make a run. But yeah. They're pretty good.
That's nice. Now, back to your hitting real quick. I kind of glazed over that a little bit. Despite your competitiveness, you've been mostly during district season batting in that 2-hole. And almost inevitably, Noel Salazar is going to get a base hit. He's going to get a walk almost every time he's at the plate, right? And then so that brings you up to the plate, and you take your direction. You unselfishly turn and you lay that bunt down. Talk about that a little bit, and then talk about how you were given the opportunity recently to drop out of that 2-hole to the 4-hole and swing away.
Yeah, I mean, like Hudson was saying, it's all about doing a job. It's all about moving runners, putting people in position to hit in runs. Like for Hudson, like putting Noel at second, so Hudson has a chance to hit him in. So Anthony does. I mean, it's all about moving runners and putting people in position to score. So
it's all about the W, right?
Yeah.
You got to win that game. All right, so have you decided on a major at Texas?
Yeah, kind of. I don't know. I want to go into business, obviously, but I like math, so kind of.
That's a good combination, though. So, especially if you and Hudson get together later and open up some kind of investment firm or something.
That would be fun. That would be funny too. So yeah.
Coach, I don't know. Coach joined us here. I think he's got some questions.
Well, I don't have any questions, but I think it'd be remiss. I've had a little bit of time just kind of reflect and kind of get my bearings about where I'm at and what we're doing here tonight. And I'm not just saying this because we're doing this, but I think it's really important that everyone knows how. First off, the 4 seniors. This is the smallest class that I've had of seniors, but they are the most engaging. They're really probably one of the most strongly intellectual young men that I've had, not only in their schoolwork but in the game of baseball. They're incredibly kind to their teammates, and that kind of permeates throughout the program. And then lastly, I think that's important is that we can, and this is going to sound really strange probably to the parents, but I'll say this for me. I can ride them. You know, I can get in their mess kit, and they know how to take it. They understand that I love them, and they understand that I'm trying to make them better, and that, you know, they are so responsive, and I love them for that. I really do, because they're good young men, and they're going to be good husbands.
I agree.
And they're going to make a good life for themselves, and it's because of their parents, and it's because because they know how to go about their business the right way, and that says a lot about their character for sure.
And it is reflective of how they were raised.
Sure.
And additionally, it's also reflective of the influence of coaches like yourself, and they probably had a few seasons of travel ball where
Sure.
there's a coach or two that they appreciate, and teachers as well.
Absolutely.
But it's extended family. You know, you mentioned your father earlier, and I just want to say before I did, and I was going to mention earlier, and I drew a blank, but before I got into doing all of this stuff, occasionally I'd find myself in the bleachers next to your dad.
Yes.
And he's a great person to sit next to. He tells all kinds of great stories about Coach Grissom. So if you ever get the opportunity, he doesn't travel up here as much as he used to.
They're going to be here tomorrow night, I believe. So
Excellent.
yeah.
Well, tell him to pop into the press box. Maybe we'll get him on.
Put him on a headset.
Yeah.
He'll be telling some West Texas stories. I don't know if they're all they're radio worthy.
I'm sure they would be.
Dad would tell you to let the rough end drag. That's an old hand story there, or saying.
Yeah, feel the roughneck.
Yeah, roughneck
thing,
story for
yeah.
sure. Yeah, for sure.
Okay, now to the embarrassing question.
Okay.
Are you dating?
Yes, I am.
And is she going to go to TLU or?
All these guys
No.
way out kicked her cover.
Is that right?
Yes, absolutely.
Hey,
The fact that these girls walk down the hallway with them, I'm like, geez, did these girls lose a bet or what?
No, she's not going to TLU. She's going to UT also, like Hudson's.
that's just right up the road from you, though. So
Yeah.
I mean,
Not too.
you
not too
can
far
come
at all.
down and go on a date and be back at campus in
By
a
night,
few
yeah.
hours. So now the next thing we're going to do is trivia, and it's Major League Trivia. The winner will get a prize. I don't have it here with me, but it's going to be what we're going to do is we're going to turn off the headsets and we're going to plug in this mic, and it'll just be me asking you, and I'll pass you the mic. But it's going to be you three, and you'll hold your hand up when I ask the question if you think you can answer. Whoever slaps first gets to answer that. So Hudson Ruin and Ryan Gallagher, come back up here, and you can leave that on if you want, so you can make sure you hear. And I'm going to pass my headset to one of them. Actually, if you'll pass that one down, and then you can wear this one. Test. Okay. All right. Now, did you hear the rules? I failed to put that up. You're going to – first one, slap the table. Don't slap it too hard, Mr. Competition. First one, slap the table. I'm going to – and my judgment is final. So, even if I'm wrong, I'm like the umpire. You can see Coach Grissom over here. He can yell at me, and I'll nod. But when it's all said and done, you're still out, right?
I know, no command.
Okay. First question. And there's a bonus. You get an extra point if you know the bonus. Albert Pujols passed Ichiro Suzuki on the all-time hits list earlier this month. Who was the last player he passed before Ichiro? It's multiple choice. Wait until all the answers are out before you slap the table. A, Pete Rose. B, Ricky Henderson. C, Craig Biggio. D, Sadahara O.
Is it Pete Rose?
It is not. Pete Rose.
4,000 hits, my God. Jeez.
Bro, I
what are
don't
you
know.
talking about?
Biggio?
It is Craig Biggio.
Really?
So there's 1 point for Gallagher. Misty keeps score.
I guess.
Now, for the bonus point,
Come on, man.
Ryan, What place did he move into when he passed Craig Biggio? On the no, 23rd. So we got 1 point for Ryan. Question 2. Who was the last pitcher before Jacob deGrom to hit a home run and strike out at least 14 batters in the same game? The multiple choice answers are A, Nolan Ryan, B, Madison Bumgarner, C, David Wells, or D, Babe Ruth.
Is it Bumgarner?
It is Bumgarner. It's 1-1.
He hits tanks.
It's Hank.
He tapped it. It wasn't a very competitive tap.
He rakes, man.
Okay.
Rake.
Since his debut in 2000, this is a hard question because I didn't even know who these guys were. I had to look it up. Since his debut in 2005, Brian McCann leads all catchers with 270 career home runs. Who is second among active catchers? And I'll give you a hint. It's the Dodgers catcher.
No.
Never mind.
Wait.
Dodgers catcher right now? Is it Grandal? Does he play for them still? I don't think they play for the Dodgers anymore. Shoot, I forgot his name.
Are we going to get a pass on everybody?
Hold up, let me whip out my phone.
Yeah.
No, can't get her phone out. It's Russell Martin.
Russell Martin. Oh, God. Missed that.
Not million.
That guy. Yeah, I had no clue. I had to look up who he played for.
I forgot.
Okay, only 5 players have homered in each of their team's first 4 games of a season. So only 5 players. Name 2 of the 5.
There's Trevor's Story.
Trevor Story is correct.
And, gosh.
That is pretty good. I'll just throw a hint out. I know y'all don't like this, but I'm the judge, remember? He's probably on the worst hitting streak of
Chris
a
Davis.
historical. There you go.
Chris Davis,
Chris Davis.
I gave it.
So it's 2-1. Okay.
It's pretty bad right now.
Oh, all right. Here we go.
53.
Who was the last pitcher with more than 12 strikeouts on opening day? Was it A, Mike Scott? Was it B, Roger Clemens? I pulled that out of RBI Baseball, by the way. C, Nolan Ryan, or D, Randy Johnson? You hit it first.
Randy Johnson?
It is Randy Johnson, so it's 3-1.
Sorry, I wouldn't have said that either.
Man, he's treating y'all like TLU is going to treat McMurray according to I'm just teasing. I'm sure. I can't wait to be able to go watch it. I hope it's here. I don't want to go to McMurray. I tease. Okay. Among active players, name one of 3 sluggers who share the lead for career home runs on opening day.
Oh, I know this one.
They're current players. You only have to name one of them. There's 3 of them. Well, hit the thing.
Yeah,
Is it
just
Springer? George Springer?
No.
Oh, man hits tanks on opening day, man. He's always hitting one.
Well, these individuals have hit 5 opening day home runs in their career.
yeah, I don't know.
Take a guess.
Trout.
That's a good guess.
Trout's not it.
Dude, Trout's always.
Think of some of the better hitters.
Arenado?
Yeah, you can always say.
There it
Pujols.
goes. Pujols.
Pujols.
Coach Grissom gets a point from the gallery. Well, we're going to get into the Cubs questions in a minute, so I made sure I got some Cubs questions in there. This is one you should know, and there's no multiple choice. You just got to know the answer. In the 2010s decade, who was the first player to win the league MVP and the Cy Young Award in the same season in the National League?
Justin Verlander?
No. It's a good guess, though.
Whiff, did he win?
And the Cy Young for NL.
Did he win MVP?
Clemens.
Hey,
No. He's the current one of the best pitchers in baseball now.
Scherzer?
That's right. He's
I
catching
forgot
up to. Weird. Has he got his phone out?
I thought Verlander's in the AL.
Okay, this is also not a multiple choice question. And if you don't get this one, I'm just going to be sad.
Okay.
I mean, y'all were young, don't get me wrong.
No, I'll probably still get it wrong.
In the 2000s decade, so another 10 years back from the last question, which team other than the Yankees won 2 World Series?
Red Sox.
It is the Red Sox.
Oh, he's good, man.
So it is 3-2-1.
I hate the Red Sox.
Everybody does, unless you're from Boston. Okay.
The Patriots of baseball.
Yes, it is. They are.
Yeah. That's
Terrible.
the Yankees.
I liked them better when
Yeah,
they
sure.
had jinx on them not winning any World Series. Okay. Major League Baseball retired the jersey number 42 league-wide in honor of the first African-American modern-day player to break the – it's not who is that. That player was Jackie Robinson. They also set aside one date in every season to honor him. And it's multiple choice. Which day of the season is Jackie Robinson Day? Is it A, Tax Day, or April 15th? Is it B, April 1st, or April Fool's Day? Is it C, March 15th, the Ides of March, or is it D, July 4th, or Independence Day?
Is it D?
It is not D.
I was going to say March 15th.
You're
C.
wrong.
See.
Huh? C? That's what he just said.
He just answered
said it,
C.
so answer another one.
Hey.
Oh, that's what I was going to say.
What?
I didn't know.
I said A.
Well, C's not even in the season. That was a trick answer
Yeah, that's
because
why.
the season doesn't start until April 1st. It is April 15th, their tax day. Now, why did they pick that day? I don't know.
Was it already happened?
No,
Is it April?
that's in
It's
2
not, it's
days.
No, it's still a
That's
few
not
days
a-
away.
Yeah.
Which American League team, and this is a multiple choice, represented their league in the 2014 World Series? Was it A, the Detroit Tigers, B, the Texas Rangers, C, the Kansas City Royals, or D, the New York Yankees?
Oh, gee, no, I don't know. Right,
Okay.
go ahead.
A.
It is not A.
I'm sorry, I missed a question.
Okay, I'll read it again.
Is it the
Which
Rangers?
American League team represented their league in the 2014 World Series? Was it Detroit? Was it the Rangers? Was it the Royals? Or was it the Yankees?
Oh,
Wasn't it the Rangers?
the Royals.
Was not that. I put that in there because I knew y'all would guess that.
I don't know.
The Royals?
It was the Royals,
Yeah, they went
but
like-
you had already guessed, so nobody gets a point on that one. All right. Which Major League Baseball team finished the 2014 season same year with the worst record? Was it A, the Texas Rangers? Was it B, the Arizona Diamondbacks? Was it C, the Houston Astros? Or was it D, the Toronto Blue Jays?
The Diamondbacks.
It was the Diamondbacks, so it's 2-2-3 here. It's getting tight. Who hit safely 200 times in a season in each of his first 10 seasons? Multiple choice. A, Albert Pujols. B is Alex Rodriguez. C is Prince Fielder. D is Ichiro Suzuki.
Ichiro.
It is
God,
4.
I actually
Okay, now the Cubs questions.
It's obvious.
The Chicago Cubs franchise retired their first jersey number in 1982. It was the number 14, and it was in whose honor? Multiple choice. A, Sammy Sosa. B,
Jeter.
Ryan Sandberg. C, Ernie Banks. Or D, Harry Carey.
Ernie Banks.
It is Ernie Banks. 5-2-2.
I like
They were
Ernie.
giving him the
I like
answer.
Ernie.
All right, here we go. There's still a few questions. Y'all got time. Which of these teams won a World Series first? Was it A, Toronto, B, California, or now Anaheim? Oh no, they're California now, right? They
Yeah,
were Anaheim before.
I don't know.
Or Florida, C, or the Cubs, D.
Wait, what was it? Who won the World Series first?
Yeah, which of these teams won a World Series first? Was it the Blue Jays? I don't know if this answer's right. The Angels, the Marlins, or the Cubs?
Marlins?
No,
Angels.
no.
I don't think
Cubs.
It is the Cubs. It is a trick question because the Cubs have been around forever. They won it like in the 1910s
I know, but they
or
sucked
something.
forever.
Yeah, they did. They did.
We can't. We don't want that Astros comments. Man. Come on, guys.
Hey, I like the Astros a lot better when I could call them the Lastros. Okay. I can't do that anymore. They're too good. Okay. Which manager took the Chicago Cubs to the postseason in 2008? Was it A, Ernie Banks? Was it B, Lou Piniella? Was it C, Don Baylor? Or was it D, Mike Quaid?
D.
It was not D.
Is it Lou Piniella?
He just said it.
Yeah, I'm just guessing.
What'd you say?
But you hit the thing first, so this could be your point.
It's Ryan's.
What did you say?
B.
B
That was
is correct. So he'll get that
Louis.
point.
Hey.
5-3-2.
Sorry.
You gave him the answer, but he already knew it. Okay, in 2007, the Boston Red Sox won their second World Series in 4 seasons, this time against the Colorado Rockies. Which Red Sox player was the series MVP? Was it A, Coco Crisp? Was it B, Manny Diaz? Was it C, David Ortiz? Or was it D, Mike Lowell? There's some big names there.
Mike Lowe.
It was Mike Lowell. Or is it Lowell or Lowell?
Yeah,
Lowell. Okay, so you're way out ahead, but we're going to go ahead and
He's
finish
just good
out.
at guessing.
It's like 6-2 or something. 6-2-3? Okay. What shape is the infield around which the bases are placed in a baseball diamond? Is it A, square, B, diamond, C, rectangle, or D, hexagon?
Square.
It is square. So it's 6-4. You're still within reach. That was an easy one, man. I thought I'd trick y'all with the
can't
diamond
get that
there being on B. Okay. He played for 16 seasons, mainly as a Cub. He won 4 Gold Gloves as a first baseman. But in 2002, he pitched in 1 inning as a Diamondback. Who is he? Is it A, Alex Arias? Is it B, Ryan Sandberg? Is it C, Moises Alou? Or is it D, Mark Grace?
D.
It is D, Mark Grace. So now you are tied. No, wait, you got 4, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
That was 2.
So it's 6-4-3. Here we go.
Double.
Run. Y'all should get this one. Who said, quote, the other teams could make trouble for us if they win? Was it A, Bill Dickey, B, Yogi Berra, C, Mariano Rivera, or D, Derek Jeter?
Yogi.
Yeah,
It is Yogi. You are tied and within 2. It's coming down to the last few questions, and I've got one in my head for the tiebreaker if necessary. The Texas Rangers were founded in Washington, D.C. in 1961 as the Washington Senators. They moved to Texas and became the Rangers. Oh, that's the answer. Never mind. Oops. What was their original? I already said their original name. Never mind. Okay.
God, I knew that one too.
When did baseball's Houston Astros play their first game?
Am I wrong for not knowing this?
We got
Yeah, the year is fine.
$1975.
Pretty close, but no.
Hey.
Not that close.
Dang.
I should have made some.
1964.
Oh, that's pretty close.
1962.
It is 62.
Dang.
I tipped him off of the close. Now
Wow.
you have a chance to tie with the final question. This week was the 25th anniversary of an individual who broke the all-time home run record. Who was that individual?
Barry Bonds.
No.
No?
That's not for a season, all time,
I was
career.
gonna say Barry Bonds.
Yes. Right.
Oh.
But it was his total all-time for career, not for a season, for a career. He didn't hit more than 50 but one time in his career.
Barry Bonds broke this guy's record.
Right. It happened this week. The anniversary was this week. Go ahead.
Who held the record before Barry Bonds?
Right.
God, I don't know.
Very famous.
Ted Williams. I don't know.
Good guess, but no.
Willie Mays. No, he's too old.
No one?
I don't got it.
He had a candy bar named after him, right?
Babe Ruth.
Not Babe Ruth. What, didn't he have a candy bar neighbor?
Yeah, that was.
It is Hank Aaron.
God.
Sorry, I messed that up. But you win, so do you want you can have a Leander flag or you can have a license plate holder for your car that's Leander Lines?
I'll take the flag.
You'll take the flag. Okay. Well, I want to thank everyone for coming out. I wish we could do podcasts for baseball more often, and maybe we will in the future. It'll be something we have to plan, and pick some dates. And, of course, baseball is one of those sports you can't really tell whether or not you're going to get to play. In fact, we may have some difficulty playing on Saturday this week. But, yeah, we take it one at a time. There's a game tomorrow night. It's at Westwood, and they're pretty salty from the last game. So everybody come out. Westwood's not very far. If you can't make it, tune in, SHN Sports. And we want to thank you for listening tonight. I want to thank these seniors. I want to wish you guys luck.
Thank you.
And go Lions, right?
Yes, sir.
All right, thanks.